A. He lived on avocados for 75 consecutive days. I mean, who knows? Instead of yammering on about Marxism and sentencing the citizens to gulags, he could have been tracking regions of high pressure over Stalingrad, or maybe tracking the relative humidity in Stavropol. B. He invented the Q-tip.
Come on. Even the Ghostbusters, as inexperienced as they were, had the forethought to bring a track.
Maybe there wasn't enough room for a trash bag in the truck. C. He was the first man to get his shoelaces stuck in an escalator. Or D. He led the Purdue Boilermakers to their first perfect 8-0 season. Doctor said I needed to cut down on sweets, so I quit cold turkey. I tried to quit smoking the same way, but lukewarm ostrich was the best I could do.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.
Ah, yes. Well, we went to a show last night.
We went to a great show. I was dying to go to this. This was my first time seeing Clutch live. It always seems like here lately they hit Silver Spring and DC and
Not Baltimore.
yeah, so it's not that we wouldn't go there. It's just always we have a lot going on. So this was perfect. It was a Friday night, Baltimore, sold out show. I made sure I got our tickets a couple weeks ago. I knew it was going to sell out.
It's fantastic. And they played Blast Tyrant from front to back.
And then they had a little extra bonus material.
They did. It was great. We grooved our butts off. It was fun.
We keep saying we're going to, we still haven't replaced our calico. We're going to name her Vominos.
Yeah. And sadly, the venue, which I really like because the beer is cheap, Rams Head Live is supposedly closing. So hopefully they'll be picked up by rock adjacent type of management company.
That's a nice setup for Maryland Death Fest. They used that as some of the inside venues this time around. And also they had that stage set up down that way. One of the stages was that way and the other stage like faces the water. So
who were the other two bands?
Many Eyes, which I really liked.
It's the guy from As I Lay Dying, right? It's his band.
Really it's good.
Metalcore. Good heavy.
I like that kind of music. In fact, I kind of liked the songs that were heavier and more knocked loose in style. They had some lighter stuff too. I thoroughly enjoyed
but before Many Eyes, something happened.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I knew.
What are they called? Native How?
Native How. Or the Native How. It might even be
I feel like Gene Hackman on the Birdcage.
I don't understand.
He's a man. They're both men.
You can't be. You can't be Jewish.
I don't understand. They had their mixture of thrash and bluegrass. They started off with absolutely raping Metallica.
I knew they lost you as soon as they did that.
It was like a mashup hillbilly version of Metallica's Harvester of Sorrow, which is one of my favorite songs. And it does not need a fucking banjo in it. The guy playing the banjo, I was like, do you think that you look cool? I mean, do you think that is the most... I also discovered, I thought that the clarinet was the most non-rock and roll instrument. I'll take clarinet all day before the banjo. That was awful. So it was so bad that like when people cheered, I was angry at them. I was like, stop. It's like when Ozzy keeps winning Grammys and I'm like, stop encouraging him. He's going to keep making shitty records. Anyway, so besides that,
they have a big following. So someone was like, was not necessarily.
And they're from Michigan too, Detroit, which kind of threw me off too. If they were like from Muscle Shoals, I don't know, maybe I'd give them a little bit of, but see, I don't think anybody from that part of the world would have such a dumb idea. I mean, anyway.
Yeah, it was an interesting, and I'm all about blends and mixes, but wow.
Well, let's say thanks a lot, Mom.
And
let's talk about Joseph Stalin.
In the late 1800s, Joseph Stalin's father, Bazarian, was a failed shoemaker. I guess he didn't have any elves to help him.
Sounds like a Disney kind of name too, Bazarian. Sounds like a Disney bad guy from like
it does.
Beauty and the Beast or something. Anyway,
it's like, oh no, it's Bazarian. We're doomed.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was a failed shoemaker with a propensity to drink.
Okay.
Plus, his mom, Kiki, was something of a floozy.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's why he was drinking.
Ever wonder if these two had let young Joseph out for an occasional puppet show, maybe he wouldn't become the world's most savage dictator?
Interesting theory. Not to mention, he also got hit by a car when he was 12, and it fucked his arm up for life. Where were Mom and Dad on that one? Is Dr. Shivago on call tonight? This is a matter of war and peace.
You know, not many people realize that Stalin had quite the curious mind as a youth, particularly for weather patterns.
Really? Wow.
You know, maybe if Mom could close her legs for 5 minutes, Dad could have stopped pounding the vodka. Maybe if they'd let Joseph check out the ballet or play with his train set a little, the kid could have turned it around.
I mean, who knows? Instead of yammering on about Marxism and sentencing the citizens to gulags, he could have been tracking regions of high pressure over Stalingrad, or maybe tracking the relative humidity in Stavropol. Bundle up, comrades. Let's check tomorrow's chart.
He was actually studying to be a priest at one time. I mean, the Orthodox Church turning someone into a monster.
Does that happen?
Unheard of, really. They claimed that they threw him out due to missed exams and classes. He maintained he was caught with the Communist Manifesto tucked into his Bible like a comic in your algebra textbook.
Suspicious. You know, Attila the Hun similarly was quite intelligent. He was proficient in both the Gothic and Latin languages. Maybe if his mom took a break from patching the armor and sharpening the swords long enough to let young Attila sample the well-known wild berries and fresh herbs that grew along the great Hungarian plain, he could have been concocting braised pork chop recipes instead of decapitating people on horseback.
He even went the Cain and Abel route and knocked off his twin brother so no one could cut in on his conquest, pillage, and rape amusement.
Interesting.
Attila the Hun's cause of death ranged from alcohol poisoning, murder, or a burst blood vessel on the night of his wedding, all of which was the usual result of a honeymoon night. Doesn't this happen to everyone? Oddly enough, I am pretty sure these are also listed in the possible Viagra side effects. Or, just to show you, you are better off binge invading countries than binge drinking and binge wifing.
Not tonight, hon. I have a headache. All right, so the conclusion here, food for thought for the moms, maybe let your kid have 10 more minutes of Minecraft or TikTok, and you'll end up with a social butterfly that wants to be an architect instead of a serial anarchist. I mean, have you noticed the kids wearing the hood up around the house all the time? That's not a good sign. Okay, it's time for our Snaggletune, and this is called Internet to the Rescue. I'm not sure if anyone else has done this, but I've recently found myself going down a rabbit hole of completely ridiculous instructional videos. And I'm not talking about how to fix your iPhone or patch drywall either, people. Check out some of these beauties. Okay, we'll start off with this one. How to change TV channels with your remote. Christ, this thing's been stuck on PBS for 6 months. I can't take any more Bob Ross or Antique Roadshow. It's a good thing old Raja on YouTube was able to give me a guided tour of the remote control. I always wondered what those buttons with the arrows did.
How about this? I'm not making this up. How to eat a cupcake.
There's a bunch of those, yeah.
I was surprised on how many instructional videos on cupcake consumption I found. Take the paper off?
Oh my.
What? Apparently, the trick is to break the bottom of the cupcake and put it on the top, making like a little mini sandwich. All these years attending the kids' birthday parties. These people must have thought we were just savages. You know, how about this one? How to tie a trash bag.
Wow.
This is scintillating content. But imagine all of the discarded coffee grounds, runaway cat food containers, and banana peels wreaking havoc on your lawn prior to Al Gore inventing the internet. Thanks, Al. Turns out the knot has to be tight.
How to blink properly. Stay with me here as I break it down like a fraction. Step 1, close your eyes. Step 2, open them. Repeat. This video got 1.7 thousand views, which by my math is 3.4K total blinks. I'd say it's kind of an eyebrow raiser, and it was moving too. In fact, you could say there wasn't a dry eye in the place when it was over. And we'll close it out with how to fly in your dreams.
Wow.
I guess Tinkerbell wasn't able to get a shift at the restaurant, so she's busting out of Neverland with tutorials like this on her OnlyFans page. Okay, want to talk about our feature interview?
Our feature interview this week is with Steve Janiak of the legendary Indianapolis doom metal band, the Gates of Slumber. We have a great talk with Steve about his initiation into Gates, as well as his other long-running projects, Devils to Pay, and Apostles of Solitude. We get into the inspiration that brought this important moniker back together for their first full length in 13 years. He shares a great story about being stuck in Finland during the pandemic and even talks about dreams of finding lost dolls. So stay tuned for that.
Maybe you could watch Tinkerbell's video and you could just scoop him up while he flies by.
Yeah, I think that would be an important step to take,
Anyway, let's play some music.
All right, this is the Gates of Slumber with Embrace the Lie.
Okay, let's talk about Patreon. The site is patreon.com/snaggletoothpodcasts. And for $6.66 a month, you get a ton of little mini Matchbox cars full of Mark and Stace.
We have lots of videos. We recently did a blind beer tasting test, which we have done before.
We
so
finally did it
always
again.
fun.
Yeah. This one was better, though, I think.
Yeah. It was really
There was
fun.
only one beer that made me retch. Sorry, spoiler alert. But anyway, get on over to Patreon and you can see the wacky hijinks. Stace tries to summon with 6 different beers of all different varieties. How well do I do? You'll have to head over there and see. Plus, there's tons of music reviews, tons of fitness tips, gardening tips, recipes from Stace. It really is the side of Mark and Stace that you don't see on this show.
We'll invite you into our kitchen.
Absolutely. Okay. And now for something completely different.
And now it's time for Obnoxious Trivia!
Okay.
Now, how much would you pay?
Okay. I worked hard on these this week because I really wanted to stump her. On the other show, I was 0 for 4. So I'm trying to really up my game here. Okay. All right. Obnoxious Trivia question number 1. Which of the following situations is most likely to result in death? A, popping a champagne cork. B, setting off fireworks. C, constipation. Or D, shark attack.
I want to say you're probably pretty doomed with D, a shark attack. I don't think there's a lot of people that come back from that.
Sorry, it is actually C. About 900 Americans die each year from disease related to constipation. Eat your friggin' veggies, people. Shark attacks are 5 a year and corks 24 a year, fireworks 8 per year, according to PETA.org. Okay, next question. What is Polish-American immigrant Leo Gerstenzang famous for doing in 1923? A, he lived on avocados for 75 consecutive days. B, he invented the Q-tip. C, he was the first man to get his shoelaces stuck in an escalator. Or D, he led the Purdue Boilermakers to their first perfect 8-0 season.
Gosh, I don't think they had access to avocados in 1923. So I'm going to go with he invented the Q-tip.
Ding, ding, ding. Very good. He did. Yes, absolutely. That old Gersten Zang, he nailed it. Okay. Now the next one is an audio daily double. What TV show had this as its theme song? Okay.
I hope my eyes. Okay.
Choices are A, Cagney and Lacey, B, In the Heat of the Night, C, Simon and Simon, or D, Jake and the Fat Man.
I was too busy thinking because it's had to be a show I watched because I recognize that. So I'm going to go with Cagney and Lacey.
I'm sorry, that was Simon and Simon.
That was my second one because I never watched In the Heat of the Night and I never watched Jake and the Fat Man.
I feel like that music could have been any of these.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of generic. Like, they all kind of sounded the same, I couldn't tell you the Cagney and Lacey theme song if you put a gun to my head. I couldn't do it. All right. Anyway. All right. So let's move on to the next question. That was tricky. Okay. All right. Which one of these was an actual historical battle? Okay. A, the Smoked Meat Rebellion. B, the Battle of Livingston's Knob.
Oh my.
C, the Davidson Moustache feud. Or D, the Ottawan molasses conflict?
They all sound horribly made up, but I'm going to go with the Ottawan molasses conflict.
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. That's a red herring. I knew you'd go for that. Because you got to think molasses, and you know that the Canadians will go to war for it. Now, it was actually the Smoked Meat Rebellion. Let's hear a little bit about it. In 1909, in McIntosh County, Oklahoma, the sheriff sent a posse to confront the local Creek tribe, as it was believed they had stolen some smoked meat from a white farmer. One man was killed and 42 arrested.
Wow.
No word on whether the meat was ever retrieved.
42 men stole meat?
No, 42 were arrested. So that means there were even more than that at the Creek Reservation when they went there. These people were serious about their smoked meat. So not bad. 1 out of 4. Not bad. So
it's an E.
And with me flashing the answers at you too. So.
I was too busy trying to think about what show I watched.
I tried to find the most generic 80s sounding. This could be a crime show. This could be a comedy show.
And if you had Dukes of Hazzard, I might have guessed that.
Okay. So speaking of TV shows,
many of you may remember Billy the Exterminator.
Oh God.
It was a show from the early 2000s when A&E could make a reality show about anything.
This is before Duck Dynasty killed it all. Yeah.
This one revolves around a family pest control company in southern Louisiana.
I always love the way Billy's constantly crawling under houses looking for snakes in 100-degree weather, but he's got 80 pounds of leather and studs on like he's about to hit the stage for Judas Priest in 1980. It focuses on a family business, right? So, and they're all ensconced in leather in the promo shot. So it's like, they're like the T-Birds, apparently impervious to sweating.
One episode, he comes up to a woman with a huge copperhead on the end of a stick, and she screams. And he goes, "Sorry about the snake, ma'am. Would you have a trash bag I can put him in?" I would say that's a pretty big error in the snake catching business.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Even the Ghostbusters, as inexperienced as they were, had the forethought to bring a trap.
Maybe there wasn't enough room for a trash bag in the truck.
You need somewhere to put it after the catching part. Look, let's hope she went for the Glad triple ply. Good thing I watched that YouTube video on how to tie it.
The knot's got to be tight. I just found out.
Who knew?
Thank you, YouTube. Later, he uses the best line on his wife. His wife also looks like she works at Hot Topic. He says, "I guess I'll hook up with you later to release the snake." And I was the only one in the room that laughed at that line.
Oh.
I guess that's what it takes in his house to get the mortgage paid.
They eventually found a way to get Mom onto the show. It's her job to answer the phones and try to schedule Billy's jobs, which he often ignores, and she ends up finger-wagging him and the dad, totally flummoxed. You were supposed to help the Reardons with their bee problem, not messing around with a copperhead. He talks kind of like Vince Neil, but with a lot more leather gear and skinnier.
Well, aren't we all, though? Really?
Whenever he's telling the customer about how the nest of brown recluse spiders will be killed humanely with his special powder made from natural chrysanthemums.
Nobody gives a shit.
They never act excited. You can tell by the look on their faces. I want you to murder those fuckers. Screw humanely.
Yeah, when your den is infested with brown recluse spiders that have, their venom is, it's a necrotizing venom. And you're not carried about, listen to the flower people. Come on, Anyway, so enough about Billy. Let's talk about some interesting, strange phrases.
This was actually inspired by Patience. There's a lot of idioms that we use, and I don't think we think about where they come from. We just repeat like what our parents said.
Yeah.
Here's one. Stealing someone's thunder. I always thought this an odd phrase. I imagined it was bowing for someone else's applause or something like this. However, the story of its origin does involve actual thunder. Well, sort of. John Dennis, a UK dramatist, invented a sort of thunder-making machine for his 1709 play, which, despite the great sound effects, flopped harder than Kate Upton's tits.
Well, that's a flop for you.
Turns out Dennis went to a showing of Macbeth later and realized the venue had stolen his idea
Oh, wow.
for making thunder noises. He was quoted as saying, "That is my thunder, by God. The villains will play my thunder, but not my plays." Yeah, dude, facepalm. Take a hint. Number one, maybe, I don't know, get a patent on the invention? Number two, perhaps Foley artist is your obvious forte. Maybe not playwriting. Let's go with what's working.
Who came up with shoot the breeze? That's a good one, right? Are we wasting time in pointless discussion or discharging buckshot? Sorry, I was a little late for the meeting. I hadn't seen Jake for months, and we ended up stabbing the air for a few.
What's all this air murdering anyway?
How about quitting something cold turkey? Doctor said I needed to cut down on sweets, so I quit cold turkey. I tried to quit smoking the same way, but lukewarm ostrich was the best I could do. Here's a good one. Monday morning quarterback. That's bound to confuse non-Yanks, you know. I don't mean to play Monday morning quarterback, but Jamie should have used a licensed doctor to perform that vasectomy. Or alternatively, not to play Tuesday evening water boy, but I noticed my wallet was gone and my toes had turned blue. Look, I know it's easy to be the Labor Day underpaid announcer, but your skirt is on fire.
How about when you don't need something to be exact? Just give me a ballpark figure. Tiger Stadium at LSU holds something like 120,000 people. So it's okay to be off by that much?
Wow.
Like a couple of thousand? Definitely not what you would call an exact science.
How about if I give you a Roman Colosseum figure? Or maybe a Mexican bull ring approximation? I mean, what's a few matadors? Look, just between you and me, this is a Great Wall of China estimate.
Oh my.
Yeah. All right, let's play a song from the Gates of Slumber. This is The Fog.
Your greed and your treason, write your blood and pain.
Okay, let's talk about Imperfect Foods.
Imperfect Foods is our sponsor, and we are also clients. Sounds like Hair Club for Men, but that's not the way it works.
Not yet, anyway.
Anyway, we have eaten all of the snacks I got from Imperfect this week, so I can't show you any of those.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a great little food service. We got hooked on the flock chicken skin crisps from them. So lots of different things you can't find in your regular food store, like elk meat, duck eggs, imperfect produce, artisan cheeses. I think we already annihilated the bacon, the caramelized bacon cheese.
Caramelized onion.
Caramelized onion.
Yeah, the that goes like crack right away. The habanero cheddar's still up there though, I think. I don't think I touched that yet, but I will.
So anyway, I have a few things to show you we have not consumed yet. If you're wondering what you can get.
It's called, look at Mark and Stace's half-eaten food.
You can get pantry items. Accidentally I ordered 3 things of enchilada sauce, so I have to find a use for this. I thought I ordered anyway. But
We'll show the rest of the class.
they also have really good I fell in love with this. This is something I couldn't find in a store. It's avocado oil spray, and this sprayer is perfect. It's non-aerosol and it actually comes out kind of thick, which I love for the air fryer. Love it.
You don't have to eat 75 avocados in one day.
These are also some things we like. It's bacon cheddar beef patties that are made for you, ready to cook. All you got to do is defrost, heat, add some condiments and some lettuce and tomato, roll.
I can't wait till we cook that up.
This apparently we got into a little bit. This is a 5-year aged cheddar cheese hot spread.
Yeah.
Although I think
There's footage somewhere of me dipping a pretzel roll into that.
neat things. If you're into cheese like us, they actually have little cheese snacks. You can
It's
get
a
whole
delicious cheese snack.
bag of these, and we only have, I think, 1 left. It's a delicious cheese snack, you know, for if you don't want to like eat shredded cheese and get it all over the floor. This is a much easier way to go. We also get stuff like you can get, they have their own brands. This is not their own brands as odds and ends, but this is a probiotic, non-fat, which I will use later to make our smoothies with.
Yay. Yay.
So you can get these and many other products. Use our link. It will save you off your first order. And you too can get food shipped directly to your door. No reusable bags, no bumping into people, no irritating checkout ladies.
No strange characters in the parking lot.
Really?
Oh, it's time.
Oh, yeah.
For collectorbation, got a really obscure one. An obscure one, but a good one. Lord's 1988 album, The Second Coming. She's a woman of the night. She's a lady in heat. She's a woman in black with 1,000 at her feet. Or so the little-known metallic chieftain Guy Lord chortles over sawing steel strings on the ribald metal fantasy Love Machine. A handful of gray hairs may remember Metal Blade alumnus Bloodlust from Los Angeles, conceivers of the new wave of British heavy metal stained speed metal nugget Guilty as Sin from 1986. Lord replaces none other than Neil Turbin in that band, and despite the album's many strengths, Bloodlust went absolutely nowhere. Subsequently, Guy pulled together a group of hopefuls, resulting in a damn fine slab of Priest-inspired biker metal.
Beyond obscure, but not impossible to find, mine is the 2016 reissue on Cult Metal Classics with lots of pictures and full lyrics. There's a nice write-up from Guy Lord, really interesting. Talks about building his Harley from scratch and mentioned he had a bike accident at the age of 16 and was actually pronounced dead at the scene. A friend was able to revive him using CPR, and then he needed something like $130K worth of reconstructive plastic surgery.
Wow.
Let's play a song. This is LOVE Machine. At any rate, he gives a nice synopsis of his musical career, which he very candidly admits ended due to his own addictions. Apparently, Lord was his creative outlet for all the musical ideas that wouldn't fit into his other band, Bloodlust. The Second Coming is one of those forgotten stunners that reminds us why we chase these small press treasures in the first place. I read online, if you hold up the logo to a mirror, it says love when backwards.
It's a shame it's such a little-known record because the disc is all gold-chugging Gibson's howling leads and Lord's Halford-informed brio. The Dwight Fry-esque opus, Back to the Asylum, approaches merciful fate-level chugs and gorgeous falsetto. Mr. Death rolls back and forth between throbbing key-bolstered passages and Painkiller-esque thrash, remarkable considering Painkiller wasn't going to come out for 2 more years. But the opener, Promises, is the disc's high point, awash in shiver-inducing vocals and absolutely luminescent leads from ex-Bloodlust guitarist Anthony Romero. Ambitious, consistently heavy, and scattershot with hooks, The Second Coming is just the type of obscure metal gem I pray to Hecate and Wildman Fisher to deliver to me as I wander through this blue ball, slowly spinning toward the apocalypse. I'm running low on ethos, my pathos is bone dry, and my logos has a weird smell, but check out this album anyway. This is Promises. All right, want to introduce the interview?
This was our great chat with the Gates of Slumber. We get into a lot of rabbit holes with Steve. At one point, I thought he was actually going to admit to alien abduction, but it was just an allegory.
Yes.
So before I spoil anything else, let's get into it.
Take it away.
We're so glad the Gates are back. So what kind of other projects were you in prior to coming back to the Gates?
Well, I'm still doing those projects. I was in a band called Devil to Pay since 2002.
I know
here
them.
in Indianapolis.
They're from Indiana? They're from Indiana,
Yes.
right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I reviewed one of their albums years ago for one of my old shows or something. Yeah.
Gates of Slumber and Devil to Pay started more or less around the same time. Carl was in Cleveland in 1998, and that's when he originally got the conceptual idea for the Gates of Slumber. So in 2003, they recorded their first official demo, and I actually helped record that one. And then by 2004, I think they had the lineup solidified for the first two albums with Chuck on drums, who's the drummer again now, and Jason McCash on bass. And so in the meantime, Chuck did those two records and then he left and started Apostle of Solitude. And we played a lot of shows with them, Devil to Pay did. And then I ended up joining Apostle in 2011. And we've been doing that ever since. So all three projects are still active. And then flashback to 2019, I joined the Gates on the bass guitar.
That's awesome.
Okay. What do you think was like, thinking back, what was like some like the first Doom music that you ever pulled you in that you really liked?
Well, probably Masters of Reality, Master of Reality, the album, some of that quintessential Black Sabbath stuff.
Yeah.
It was just the darkness of it. And I know I got into Goat Snake and Trouble in the late 90s, I guess. So those were always a big influence on me personally. But I've always been a fan of a lot of heavy styles of music. So, I mean, I was a fan of Gates of Slumber too, being from the same town and playing shows with them and watching them, go off and do a lot of European tours and get on MTV and all that crazy stuff. So,
yeah.
Have you always been a bass player, or is that something that you just gravitated to because of like the strength and the power of it?
No, I played guitar since I was 11 years old, and I sang and played guitar in Devil to Pay and Apostle. And in Apostle, Chuck is also a guitarist and singer. He started out on drums, I think, and then became a guitarist later. But when Carl wanted to get the band back together, he was going to play the drums. And they asked me if I wanted to play bass or be interested in playing bass, and I said yes, of course. So being a guitar player, it's not really a big transition, but it's kind of a mindset to play the bass and to not be a guitar player playing bass. So I'm still learning, and I try to fill in as a bass player and not a guitar player. And sometimes I do a good job, sometimes maybe I don't. But I'm also a singer, so I think about melodies mostly when I'm playing bass. So hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, definitely. So how many total guitars and basses do you have?
Oh dear. I'd have to do some math. Let me think. I have one main bass, Rickenbacker, that I got a few years ago. When we did the tour in 2019, I didn't have a bass. I was borrowing my wife's bass. She has a Fender P bass, and I love that bass. I took it all over Europe and came home and said I need my own bass. So we have 3 bass guitars in the house. I have, let's see, I think I have 3 SG guitars, and I have a Motorhead custom guitar that I won in a contest.
Oh, cool.
And then I have a Les Paul, a 79 Les Paul, and I probably have a couple more. And then there's a couple acoustics. So I don't know what the total is actually.
What was the Motorhead contest?
I don't remember. It was like some online magazine. My wife and we enter sweepstakes kind of for fun, and we've won a lot of weird stuff. But that was one of the cooler things. I probably should have had it in here to show it to you, but it was a company called Artist Series Guitar, and they would lay out like a classic album cover on the actual guitar. So they did a Holy Diver version, and then the Motorhead one has the Snaggletooth on it, and and I won, but they gave me a prototype. They didn't give me one of the actual series. So they only made 100 of them, and mine is a prototype.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
It's a nice piece for the wall, but
Oh, okay.
it's not like something you'd want to play every single day.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I know you weren't necessarily there at the beginning of the bidding, but I know the band's name is taken from the Cyanide song. It almost seems like a doom tradition, like the Skull naming themselves after Trouble, or Carl's interim project was Wretch after a former Gates album. Is that kind of a thing to
Yeah,
do that?
probably. I wasn't really around when they named the band, but once it was there, it was kind of locked in. And I think at the time that he started Wretch, it was more of like trying to stay within, the terminology or ideology of Gates' songs, and it made sense at the time that he did name it after that. But to him, they were distinct projects, and I think I wouldn't mind personally working on some of that material, but I think because he's got it compartmentalized, that this project was this, and it was kind of like more about his own internal feelings and himself, whereas Gates is more about subjects, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a thing.
You can really tell from especially the video that you guys have out, you really just seem to click and gel. Was that like an immediate feeling, or did it kind of evolve as you guys started to play?
I think that since they played together, back in the early 2000s, they definitely had that chemistry, and they did their first European tour together and a bunch of stuff before, Chuck eventually left the band. So I really think that foundation and their friendship, over the years, and the rekindling of that friendship kind of solidified, that chemistry. And I was just trying to make sure that I could keep up being the new guy on the new instrument. And we did the 2019 European tour was more or less the reason the band got back together, because Carl kept getting emails from Wolf from Hell Over Hammerberg saying, "You have to come play this festival." And he's like, "I don't have a band." And he had been talking to Chuck again and just finally was like, "Hey, man, that sounds like fun, Because initially he didn't want to start the band back up or have anything to do with it. He was like, that was a period in my life and it's over now. So once he opened the door and they asked me to play bass, we're like, sure, let's jump in and do it. We practiced, a couple times a week. And once we got over there, I played my first show as a bass player. So that was pretty fun. But it only took a couple of shows, and we played like 9 days straight and played some big festivals. And we got stuck over there during COVID for a second, but luckily we made it home. So as far as whether it was a success, it was, except the world shut down as soon as we got home. So we couldn't really capitalize it on in the same way. Everyone's freaking out.
It seems like if you read the history of the band, there's been a lot of kind of untimely deaths. Did that freak you out at all? Did you think that maybe the
No.
project was not meant to be, or?
No, I did joke though that I'd like to play in the band, but I don't want to, die or anything.
It's very Spinal Tap. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, they had split in 2013, and then Jason was struggling with his addictions. And then, and I know he'd tried to kick it a couple different times, and I think, just got the best of him at the wrong time. And then, they hadn't been a band for a little while when Clyde passed, and I think the official reason was heat exhaustion, but I'm not 100% sure. And then when I think it was 2020 when Bob Fouts passed, and that they didn't actually release the information on his passing, but they weren't really related, to the band per se at that time. It's just, a lot of mystery going on with these guys, and sometimes some struggles, with various things. And you know, I guess the darkness of the music, draws out the darker, character in people, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think the thing that they said when they got back together was they don't want any, they just want to have fun and, not sleep on floors anymore. So it
Earn
was
the
like,
right.
as long as it's easy and fun, we should go do it. If it's going to be a hassle, it's not. So that's kind of been the MO. And Carl's been taking care of his elderly father lately, so we don't have a whole lot planned as far as shows go, um, at the moment. And Chuck's got a family, and he's still got Apostle, and I'm still doing Apostle with him. So we try to make sure that we have a good time on top of all the important stuff within the bands. But we're really feeling fortunate just because we've gotten so much great feedback about the new record, and um, it seems to be going over well. And I think I said this in another interview. Even if it didn't go over well, we'd still be really proud of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about just metal in general as it ages. I mean, I think Metal Church has had 3 singers die. So, like, where do
I
you
did.
go from there? I think they've had 3 lead singers that are now passed. It's like, where do you
I,
go from there? You know what I mean? Like,
I I didn't know that, but it just sometimes I guess life is gonna throw the craziest situations
yeah,
at a band. Like, and then I see people complaining about, well, here comes this band and it's only got 2 original members or 1 original member. And
right.
on one hand, yeah, sure, if you loved the lineup that was the classic, that makes sense. Maybe you won't go see the show, but on the other hand, you're really lucky that there's still a version of the band still playing the songs that people love. So if
Yeah.
people want to go see it, I don't have any problem with that. I think that it's important to enjoy and really support the bands that you've loved, and the songs and the songwriters and that kind of thing. um I mean, if you put the Gates revolving lineup on a chart, it's got a pretty crazy, you know, ups and downs with this drummer was here and then this drummer left, this drummer came back. That's happened a couple times, and they were just like, got to keep pushing forward. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think,
And that's what matters. Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's the spirit too. Like, we talked, with Legends of Doom, and that was so great. They were able to take Eric's work and record it, and it's just keeping
right.
that spirit going, I think, is the important thing.
Yeah, it's the it's the guys from Trouble, and you got Carl from Leadfoot. You've got a real meeting of the minds there. They're not going to put out a crap product,
Right. I just saw them at Desert Fest, New York. My wife and I went,
Cool. Yeah.
and I wasn't sure what was going to happen on stage or who was going to be singing, but both Scott Riegers and
Yeah.
um,
Carl. Yeah.
Carl were there, and they would get up and do a couple songs, and the other guy would get up and do a couple songs, and they're playing old COC, and they're playing Trouble, then they're playing The Skull, and they're playing the new songs that they did. They're playing Vitus, and you're just like, I can't handle it. It's too much awesome, and they're very
Yeah.
appreciative. And Ron Holzner playing bass, and he's a super nice guy. It was just great to see them, and I think I want to say June, the Maryland Doom Fest is happening again. I think they just announced it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I didn't want to be the spoiler. But Legions of Doom are playing
Yeah.
on Saturday night, I think, and Apostles playing Friday night. So I'm pushing really hard for us to stay there to make sure we're able to, catch their set and the rest of the bands.
Yeah.
Well, we will
Yeah,
definitely see you there.
we
We're
go
in
every year.
Baltimore.
Yeah, because we're Baltimore
Oh,
based, so we'll definitely see you there. Yeah. So,
awesome.
yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
great time last year. We really,
No, it's a small community, but I like the way that these bands, there's that sense of reverence, and
Oh,
it's
definitely.
just both with both with Gate, with you guys and with the Legions of Doom thing. It's nice to see we're all aging gracefully. I guess you could say, right?
I like to think so. I think also, people have asked me about playing bass in the Gates. I mean, Jason McCash was kind of a force in the band. He wrote a lot of material and he did a lot of the networking. So he was pretty well known all around the world in the scene. And it's a little intimidating to think about trying to fill his shoes, but I don't think about it quite the same way. I just think about trying to capture the spirit, and the energy of what he did. Because I don't know that I'll be able to play the bass just as well or write the songs kind of the same way, but I'll put my own spin on it, but always with the appreciation of what came before and the amount of attention to detail and the spirit of the whole thing that he brought. I guess that's the best way I'd like to.
Was there
state
any
it
part
out.
of, I mean, you learned the bass for this band. Was there anything about learning it that you were surprised that was tricky? Like, anything about it that was maybe you didn't think this was going to be challenging, but it was, that sort of thing?
I think definitely there were a few riffs that were just kind of tricky and that came from a different place. I mean, obviously sometimes it would slow down and be a little more simple, but there were interesting parts that I hadn't really thought about playing even on bass, and I had to kind of wrap my head around them from a different point of view to get it just right. And I think there was a lot more songcraft that went into their stuff that than people probably realize, because it's heavy and down tuned, or I think what Gates we play in C sharp standard, and we're now currently working on new material that's like in drop tuning, so that changes everything too. But yeah, there were definitely some parts here and there, and I definitely, as we went along with the tour and I would listen back, I would be like, oh, I don't think I've been playing that the same, but that's not really that big of a deal on the bass. I think as much if it was a guitar, then you would notice it probably a little more. But I had a
It probably
great
gives
time,
you.
and we brought my buddy with us on the tour, and he filmed all the shows, and we had GoPros, so I
Hmm.
have footage of every single show. We put some of it up on YouTube, and a lot of it we shared with our Patreon members, and they seem to really enjoy that stuff too. But it almost feels like by the time we got to the last show, we're finally locked down. We're good to go. This is it.
Oh,
This is the best we're going to sound. We got to keep going. But now we have another kind of
was it?
lockdown
Yeah.
back at the homestead.
Yeah. Well, it probably gives you a whole new appreciation for watching those old Geezer Butler videos where he's going crazy.
Right.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
man was
definitely.
full of energy and such good playing.
Yeah, he was also a force to be reckoned with. I mean, he probably wrote not nearly as much as Tony, but he he contributed a lot, and writing all the lyrics too. That's all pretty amazing.
Oh yeah.
Just, I mean, they were just such a special band.
Yeah.
Their chemistry. So then
Yeah.
again, once they change lineups, there's still power to be found there.
Yeah.
Never give up. I guess that's kind of a never say die. I don't know what I'm saying
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, there's a family tree. I mean, you think Gates has a
Right?
big family tree. Look at that one. Sabbath. Good
Yeah.
Lord.
Actually, I watched a video the other day about LA Guns.
Hmm.
I did not know that they had 60 members over the course of
Oh my
their
God.
history.
No, I didn't know that either.
Well, it made it worse because there were at one point there were three different versions playing live.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. That was like the early 2000s when all the hair bands were like suing each other.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
there were for a long time there was there's just the Phil Lewis version, and then Tracy left to do Brides of Destruction, but he came back and started LA Guns, and they sued him, so he had to make it Tracy Guns LA Guns, and then later Steve Riley left and he started Steve Riley's LA Guns,
LA Guns.
and
That's
some of
right.
these other versions did their own albums, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to make a playlist and listen to all these and figure out, what was working. Even they did an EP. One of the versions had the singer for Steel Panther, so he
Oh
actually
wow,
sang.
really?
Yeah, that's crazy. But I don't think that's even the most members of a band. I want to say, I won't remember off the top of my head who it was, but I found some band. It was I think it was a '70s band, and they were up in the 100 different people category.
Oh
But
wow. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
that's kind of
I would think
crazy.
like I would think like Uriah Heep probably had something like 70 or
I
80
th-
people in the
I
band,
think
you
that
know.
was it. I think it was
Might
right.
have been, oh yeah, yeah. That would be one of my guesses anyway. Yeah. So.
If you were making a flow chart, you'd have to have Velcro on some people, though. They were in
Right.
there.
Excellent.
That's all the UK hard rock and heavy metal scene has ties to each other, right? Someone had it might have been in a box set I had from King Crimson, and it had every guy, and they were just arrows and lines going to the other bands he'd been in. I thought, okay, I hope there's no quiz at the end of this because
I remember
that's
I saw like an interview with Ian Anderson one time, and he was talking about how him and Lemmy and like the guys from ELO, I mean, it was the move back then. They all went to the same music store, so they would like he would rent a guitar for a while, and then Lemmy would rent the same guitar, and then
right.
it was like, and you can't believe these names that they all must have lived in like a 5 block radius. It's crazy.
That probably would have been the place to be, if you could just pick up and go
Nobody
there,
was big yet, I guess.
right?
It was before everything, Prague took off and everything, so
I'm still
crazy.
amazed that the UK seems so small to me for so many amazing bands and singers and artists that just come out of that
I don't
small
know.
island or whatever. That's
I don't know. It is.
Agreed.
It really is mind-boggling, and they still are. There's still so many good bands like World Blood, and there's a ton of good. I mean, we're big Kerrang readers, so we try to keep
all
up
right.
with it. But yeah, it's they definitely have something's going on over there in terms of talent. So.
We accidentally did a show, and when we filter through like a vinyl, an interview, and then 3 new music reviews, and we accidentally picked an entire show. Coincidentally, was UK.
Everything
The whole show.
everything was English. Yeah,
Even our vinyl
the
was
new
Iron Maiden.
bands. I did the vinyl of like Number of the Beast. It was just a coincidence, but that's just
Well, that's cool. Then you got it. It's all branded out. This is the UK
it was yeah. I
show.
wanted to go find like a UK flag or something for the show, but it was already done. So we just didn't plan it that way. Anyway.
So for this record, who kind of did what with writing, or were you able to get together because of the pandemic, or?
Yeah, there was a period of time where we didn't practice, but once everyone was like, cleared, we got back together and we would practice on a regular schedule. But the first 2 songs, those guys had already started before I even came to play the bass. They had sketched out um, the first song. I gotta look at the album cover here. See, I have the CD.
Oh yeah. Sure.
They had Embrace the Lie, but they called it The Keep at the time. And then they had Full Moon Fever. They had the basic parts, maybe basic arrangement for each one. So in the process of relearning their older stuff, because the tour we did was like to support a live album. That long story. Anyway, we played mostly stuff off the first 2 releases for that tour, but they were like, Chuck and Carl both were like, oh, it's kind of a pain to go back and remember what I was playing 20 years ago. So I'm gonna throw you this new riff and see how that goes. And then they'd start jamming on it and be like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I come in and they've got those 2 songs kind of going, and we kind of worked in a couple ideas maybe before we did the tour, but then definitely after we got back from the tour, because it wasn't really planned to do an album. It was more like,
Right.
maybe we could do an album, but let's do the tour and have fun. And then once the tour was over, we had the fun and the panic attack of being possibly stuck in Helsinki for who knows how many
Oh
weeks.
wow, that's where you were stuck. Wow.
Oh wow.
We didn't actually get stuck. Do you remember when the government said no more flights back from Europe to the United States.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
night, we had played in Stockholm, and we had a great show. We were out eating pizza with a friend who was from Indiana who lived there now. And when we got back to the hotel at 3 in the morning, that's when they made the announcement in the United States with the presidential address or whatever it was. So everyone's calling, you have to get out of there like right now because Friday
Yeah.
they're going to lock down. So we went to the airport and we got there at like 4 in the morning and nothing was open. And all these Americans started showing up and people were freaking out. They need to get out of the
I
country.
don't believe it. Yeah.
And by the time we got up to the window, the partner airline, it wasn't the airline we were using, said, well, we can't really help you because we're not the main airline and your flight is, in 3 days or whatever. And so Lufthansa didn't have an office there, whatever that means. So someone said, okay, but you could still fly home to the United States. And we're like, oh, okay, that's fine. So then we took a boat from Stockholm to Helsinki
Yeah.
during the time when people were like, don't get on a boat. There's boats off the coast of America with sick people. We took it's more or less a cruise. They call it a ferry or whatever.
Yeah, the ferry, right.
It was a pretty big boat, like 8 stories. And I got scared when I saw semi tractor trailers parked underneath it. And I'm like, that's very heavy.
Yeah, in Lemmy's book, he talks about that they had to take ferries when they did Finland, and and there's
because
trucks on there and stuff. Yeah,
you
yeah.
just can't drive it. It's not even possible. So
Right.
we get to Helsinki for the last show. We went to dinner. I cracked one of my teeth, which was
Oh my
awesome.
God. It's a great
Then
trip.
then we played the show, and it was like super awesome show. There were kids from Russia there. That was pretty interesting. And then it was time to figure out what was up with the flight, but you couldn't get through on the phone and you couldn't get through on the website. There was just no way. So we had to go to the airport at like 5 in the morning again. And that was the day of our flight. So they just bumped us to an earlier flight. But of course, everyone else from the States was trying to get home. So it was kind of a madhouse. And the
Yeah.
flight was kind of overbooked. And then we landed in Chicago and they had all these CDC people with, shield masks and they're wearing like scrubs. And then all the passengers are in these like lines like you're at Kings Island or, amusement park. And you're supposed to stay 6 feet away from people, but there's 3,000 people in one
Yeah.
big space and there's no so
way, right?
you're just thinking I'm gonna die here. And it took us 2 hours to get out of the airport, but I heard later that because it was so slow, more people were stuck there for like up to 6 hours. So and then we got home and the next day I called my dentist and I said, I have this cracked tooth, I need to fix it. And they go, okay, if you come in right now we can fix it because we're closing tomorrow and for an indefinite period of time.
Oh my God.
And I said, well, I just got back from Europe. And they go, okay, never mind. You can't come in.
Oh,
So
right.
I just had to like deal with it until things started moving again. And luckily it wasn't a painful, break. It was just
Yeah.
uncomfortably, made me nervous, I ended up having to pull the tooth, but it was like a year later. But that was my rock star life. We had a driver and a van, and we're cruising around playing all the hits and seeing a lot of old friends and fans of the band and stuff. Then we came home. I forgot the original question was about songwriting. Sorry about that. So we started picking back up with the songs, and I think Chuck had written the Keep, which became Embrace the Lie, and Carl wrote Full Moon Fever, and I had We Are Perdition. That was my contribution at first, and we jammed that out and kind of made an arrangement for it. And then Chuck wrote At Dawn. He brought that song in. The music was all completely done. We just had to brainstorm on the lyrics and the vocal parts. And I came up with the parts for The Fog, and I didn't have any plan for it. I just had these 3 parts that I would play back to back. That took a little time because I didn't feel confident enough to arrange that one. I wanted to get everybody's input, and Carl ended up making some suggestions, and then he wrote the middle section and picked the topic and made it about the movie The Fog. which is super cool. And then he had the Plague from, I think, way back in the 90s. He had written that riff, and we fleshed that out. So it was pretty much a group effort. And then I'd like to say that everyone had a say in the arrangement. If this is working for me, that's not working for me, that kind of thing. But there wasn't any fuss or any drama about it. It was just, I like this. Let's keep doing this, that kind of thing. And once we got these songs to this particular amount of time, we were like not sure about trying to cram another song in there. I think we were thinking, this is it. These songs kind of fit all together, and that's really the whole of the story.
Usually self-titled albums, to me, I always think they called it a self-titled album because it's like the essence of what this band is about, like the self-titled Trouble album, Is that
Right.
kind of the deal here, or was it just that you guys didn't feel like looking for a title?
Well, no, I think it was a little bit of talk about it, that more or less it's a reset, of the band. And so I don't really remember who decided it now that I think about it. I know it wasn't me, but it made sense at the time. Like, yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll just call it the Gates of Slumber. And then the cover, those guys decided a long time ago they wanted to do something like this. And they just decided after 20 years they were going to do it, which was a black on black with an embossed. So the CD doesn't have the embossment, but the vinyl itself has the letters in black are all popped out like embossed.
Wow.
And somewhere along the line, we decided to do the white outline, and there's some zombie versions of us on the back.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's nice.
I love that T-shirt.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, it made me think of the first Vitus when I saw it. Yeah, that was kind of the vibe I got.
Now, I didn't really think about this until later, but it's very Spinal Tap-ish now that I think about it. But that's probably a good thing, subconscious thing. There are people who miss the sword and sorcery imagery from this album cover, and that's a fair criticism, I guess. But as far as trying to make that statement or non-statement, that this is just kind of where we were at in our headspace of the band is back. This is our black album, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
to
think
me,
it's
it kind
great.
of seemed like a rebirth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like that whole
Mhm.
vibe.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't think we have any expectations of lasting forever. So it's more like this is where we are right now kind of thing. And, we're going to probably keep doing it as long as we can. And it's easy and fun and we get along, I guess. Although you never know, those guys may kick me out and then I'll have said this in this interview. No, but I don't know. We're all, pretty good buddies now. And, there's a lot of stuff that comes when you get to our age that it isn't as much fun. And being in the band actually kind of helps you get through, some of the BS of the daily grind. So
yeah.
that's kind of a benefit. Plus, you play the music that's big and mean. You kind of get stuff off your chest. It's like listen to Slayer when you're a kid. You're kind of raging, and it's like a therapeutic thing.
Yeah.
I know we had a few track-specific questions. I don't know if you'll know the answers to, but how did you feel about your zombified self? I like I said, I love that shirt.
Well, Carl actually hit that artist up on Instagram and asked him to do it. He'd seen some of his other work, and when he first said it, I was like a little skeptical, like. But when I saw the final result, I was like, "Oh, that is awesome." I kind of wish it would have been the album cover, but it's okay too on the back. On the vinyl, it's like bigger and I don't know. It turned out really well. I think, as long as I don't end up an actual zombie and look like that, I'm good.
Where did the monster noises come from at the beginning of Full Moon Fever? Sounds like.
Well, they're technically in the middle because the monster he's transforming.
Yeah.
So the song, I think originally Carl wanted to have it be tongue in cheek, and some of the lyrics he originally came up with were, about chasing cars and, from a werewolf's point of view. But then he wanted to kind of play it straight, so we kind of changed those up. So it's a guy who loves being a werewolf, and he lives, for the late night hunting and all that stuff. But initially, we were going to put audio clips from classic werewolf movies, like the original maybe. And somehow we didn't end up doing that, and I don't remember exactly why. Like, somebody thought someone else was going to do it. Like, oh, you do it. Like, I don't know. But when we were in the studio, I know we spent an hour or an hour and a half listening to wolf sounds, like howling sounds, and it was like you could free license, so we didn't have to worry about getting sued or whatever. And it was like, whoa, like there was a short one and there was like a long one, or there was like multiple ones together. And I just remember thinking, well, we're just going to get lost in these choices. And then the next day at the studio, they started early and I couldn't make it. And by the time I got there, they had already recorded that transformation part. So I don't really know the genesis or why it ended up like that. But I was like really surprised. Hey, you don't really expect to hear it on the song. So when it starts happening, you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And then it makes more sense if you kind of get along with the lyrics. And you can hear the bones cracking and stuff. So it's kind of a
Yeah, it's
cinematic,
really cool.
it's totally something different. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't show up to the studio, because I might have been like, that sounds weird.
Also for At Dawn, I've always loved that. We ride at dawn, but
Right.
I kind of was trying to figure out what you were riding for.
Well, Chuck came up with the title exactly like that, like At Dawn We Ride. And Carl has said since that the lyrics are about the Franco-Prussian War, I believe, but
Okay.
really all wars in general. So
Okay.
I didn't contribute too many lyrical ideas to that one. They were just kind of riffing on it, and he had them wrapped up pretty fast. So he's trying to just create that image of being surrounded by bodies and smell of fire and blood and whatever. But yeah, it's a pretty aggressive part of the album, and I thought it just turned out really really mean. And I don't know, since I didn't really have anything to do with the riffs of it, I just kind of get to sit back and enjoy it, which kind of makes more of a contrast when, if one guy writes all the stuff, sometimes it can get a little samey, and so since we all contributed, there's a little bit of a push and pull with, some of the ideas against each other.
Yeah, definitely cool. Yeah.
So for you kind of touched on it, because as soon as I was like the fog and the plague, I was like, Stephen King. This is a Stephen King vibe here. But it's kind of like, I liked how the fog was kind of very slow and plodding. Was that intentionally done, kind of like to be like thick and dense like fog?
I think so. Well, we had played those riffs, and originally that intro part, I just repeated it. So I'd repeat the intro and then the verse and then the chorus kind of over and over and over. And when we were trying to lay it out, eventually he was like, why don't we just make the intro be its own piece? And so when we finally stopped doing the intro, we're done with it. We'll come to it. We won't come back to it later. But the song is really about the movie The Fog by John Carpenter. So it's not about the Stephen King version.
Okay.
And Carl loves that movie, and the lyrics are about the characters in the movie and the curse that's in it. And if you haven't seen it, you might want to go back and have a refresher, because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I was just trying to like play catch up on that. And then the middle section, some of the lyrics I believe are from a penance song, and the real doomy part right in the middle. I got it here. Hold on. Its poor lost souls rise from the depths of the seas and surround me on the shore. You bartered your soul for this chest of gold. Toil with us now and forevermore. And there's a solo there. It's just grim and terrifying. But I don't know if we tried to make it like The Fog. I think it's just more or less a tribute to that movie and that storyline. But the plague is just generally about the plague, and I like to think that the pandemic kind of fed into it because he already had the riff, and it was called the plague, I believe. So it's literally about the actual plague.
Wow.
But the pandemic and the PTSD that we went through may have. I mean, we were in a modern plague at the time that he was finishing it, so I just assumed that it was about the pandemic, but it turns out, joke's on me. Either way, there's a lot of similarities between the two, although one was probably a lot worse. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's just something about those last two songs. They're just a lot darker and I guess like more about despair than the rest of their album.
And I love the pace. And the mix is really good because there are times when the guitar's on the top and you can still hear you plain as day on the bottom. It's a really, really good mix.
I feel like we got really lucky. I mean, Carl had worked with Mitch before, and it was in a different studio. They had moved to this spot downtown in Indianapolis called 416 Wabash, and it's kind of an event space, so people have their wedding receptions in there. But it's like a warehouse, and there's a music studio inside it. So we were able to set up in this big room and get these natural sounding drums, and then be able to use modern technology to capture the guitar and the bass in the best possible way. And I think it helps being a trio also for the bass to come out. Like all my other projects, there's two guitars and they're kind of dominating, so the bass has to go somewhere else. But in the trio setup, the bass is more or less the foundation of everything. You can't live without it. So I got lucky to be a little more prominent. But we got really good tones out of the studio, and I was able to hold my own. When we did the first tour, I was playing just with a pick because I didn't have the dexterity in the fingertips yet or I didn't trust myself to try. And since then, I've been playing with my fingers, and only if it really required it to use the pick. So we're very happy with the way the mix turned out and the tones that we got.
They're really nice.
Well, you brought up Penance. There was a time, early 2000s, when we would only listen to what we called Mid-Atlantic Doom is all we would listen to. It was Penance, Dream Death, Pentagram, Internal Void, Iron Man, you guys, it was like somebody
Right.
would bring up like Candlemass and be like, fuck those guys,
Right. A scene of really good people and such a, kind of a sound, like I think a lot of those bands influenced each other a little bit.
Pale Divine. I saw Pale Divine in a pizza parlor in Delaware. It's great.
That's awesome. We did Apostle did a tour with Pale Divine a couple years ago, and that was pretty fun. We played, I want to say, San Antonio.
Yeah.
And the room that we played in was like 110 degrees or something stupid.
Oh,
wow.
And it was almost pitch black. And I remember thinking, if we don't die here, this will be one we'll never forget.
Yeah.
Because this guy Lloyd does these shows, and sometimes he has a small venue. There's no stage. The PA is just kind of sort of there, and there's no lights. So and people come into the hot room and get a beer and listen for a while, and then they go outside because it's
so hot, yeah.
summertime in San Antonio. So probably go to Texas in the wintertime next time. Yeah. I love those guys though.
It was the singer McCluskey, is that his name? He plays guitar and sings, I think.
Yeah, it's Greg Diener.
Greg Diener. Yeah,
Yeah,
he sounds like Danzig meets Hetfield. What a voice! I mean,
right.
they should be huge. What a voice! I mean, I never forget that night I was at that pizza party. There were like 12 people there. I was like, really?
Right.
What a great
Yeah,
band.
it's not. I mean, this is not related, but last night I actually had a dream about Darren, their drummer. I had a dream that he lost his dog, and I was helping him find the dog. And we're friends on Facebook, but I'm not sure that they have a dog now that I think about it. So that was pretty weird.
Hmm.
I don't know why I had that dream. That's really bizarre.
All right. Well, we play a game on the show. So I have 100
Uh-oh.
questions in front of me. I want you to pick 5 numbers that'll correspond to the 5 questions you will answer.
Well, I got to go with 13. If you got a 13 on there,
Yeah.
my lucky number.
Okay.
And you said 100?
No, just five. There's 100 questions total, so 5 between 1 and 100.
Okay. How about 71? And that's 2, so 88, 14, and 5. I don't know why.
Okay.
Number 13. What would be your ultimate night out?
Oh, probably going to see a show and having it be in Las Vegas.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Go see, like, we went to see Alice Cooper last Halloween
Oh, awesome.
for his tour with Rob Zombie. And on the
Yeah.
way to the theater, Rob Zombie announced that he had a cold, so he wasn't performing.
Oh my.
Oh my.
And so Alice Cooper played 11 more songs and than they normally do. So we got to see the extended Alice Cooper show, and that was awesome.
And
And
Nita Strauss on guitar.
yeah, they have
She's
3
great.
guitar players.
She's great. Yeah.
They're so awesome.
Yeah.
Huge fan. But being in Vegas, that's the bonus part.
I remember I read this interview with Dee Snider, and he was talking about how all the headbanging, all the headbanging bands had to get surgery, on their neck, and he
Right.
goes, Alice was the smart one. He decided he was just going to dance around with a top hat.
That is
He
smart.
could do his act forever.
It's
surgery is
just
required.
eventually your neck either gets stronger and you're able to sustain it, or you keep throwing it out. That's the danger.
I remember seeing interviews. Any of the guys in the Big Four, they're all like, we had to have the surgery. Like Mustaine had to have it. Hetfield had to have it. The guys from Slayer, everybody had to have it. The guys in Anthrax, because they just overdid it. They completely destroyed their
It's like carpal tunnel for your neck.
their tendons in their neck. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be careful.
In Doom, it's not as much. I guess
it's true, but
you're not playing Whiplash. It's like.
But when I'm playing bass, I don't. If I'm not on the mic, it's definitely nodding along.
Yeah.
However, I'm not doing it the whole show, and we don't tour nearly as much as any of those bands did. So maybe I won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, maybe you'll be all right. Yeah.
You said 71.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could jump out of a parachute from a plane if you had to?
If I had to, yeah. I wouldn't be looking forward to it, but I have not done that in my lifetime. There's always a time and place for everything, though.
I'm guilty. We went in college about 2 months after seeing Point Break.
All right.
I felt like I had to do it. And of course, it's not 22 minutes that you're up there, of course, like the movie,
Right.
It's over in like, I don't know, 6 minutes or something like that. Now, once the chute comes out, you can slow it down a little bit.
Right.
The actual
I
falling
saw
part. Yeah.
some video where it was like some grandma decided to do it. And because she's so thin, she's like almost falling out of the harness.
Oh my God.
And that's a terrifying video.
Yeah. One thing about it that I was surprised was again, I was in my 20s, but you think about getting like sucked out of an airplane, you have to fight your way out of the airplane. Like imagine like trying to get out of a car that's going like 80 miles an hour. That's what it's like. You have to be committed because you got to pull out onto that wing. So if you're having any second thoughts, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Or they have to find they'll strap you to somebody
Oh,
else.
this was right. I got in right before they started doing that shit. So luckily I was able to
Okay.
control
And
it.
you have no choice because they go and you go. I said I would just pee all over the guy and all the way down. That would be it.
It's possible.
It was
You
like
just
the
never.
greatest roller coaster ride ever. That was over in 3.5 minutes. So.
But there are people that jump and then their chute doesn't open or it doesn't open till the last second, and they survive. Like they hit a tree or something.
My father
So
said, I told my father I did it, and he goes, "You're an idiot. I had to do that in Vietnam, and you paid for it." I was like,
right.
"Oh, thanks, Dad."
Well, but to be fair, you didn't have to go run and fight people after landing. So
I didn't have the whole fear of death thing. Another thing about it, remember, is before you jump, they show you this whole map of the town because you could like land, and they're talking about like they've had to go out like 5-10 miles to pick people up that drifted, and
right.
they show you like where the power lines are and everything. I mean, it was
God.
so you can. I mean, there's a target, but apparently, like people end up really far away sometimes.
I am really fascinated by the bodysuit flying people. Like they jump off the side of a mountain
Oh
and then they
God.
coast like a
Oh
flying
yeah,
squirrel.
yeah,
And
yeah. That's crazy. Yeah,
when you watch those videos, they have GoPros and that guy behind it GoPro, and you're just like,
yeah, yeah.
you can't help but feel like somebody's gonna hit that rock the next time,
Yes.
like because they just barely skim
Oh,
it.
God.
And every
If
once in a while they'll be like, "R.I.P. so and so, he didn't miss the
yeah,
rock."
the potential injuries are just
It's awful,
staggering. Yeah,
but it's beautiful to watch.
if done right, if done
Right,
right. Yeah, yeah.
right.
All right. 88. Have you ever dyed your hair? And if so, what color?
I think I dyed it red in high school, or just out of high school, but just part of it, and it
Like an
wasn't my
auburn or
idea.
like a red?
It was like a punk rock
Like,
thing or something.
yeah, like my girlfriend talked me into it, kind of thing. I also permed my hair in high school, like freshman year of high school, and that was scarring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Not
did the same
literally,
thing.
but
I did the same.
my mom said, I can't believe I'm saying this. My mom said something like, "The girls will notice you now," or whatever. That was not true.
See,
I
for me,
just
it was true. For me, it was true. Like I felt like I had made the biggest mistake of my life when they put those nasty smelling chemicals on, and
right.
people like saw me getting it done and everything. But my God, it changed my social life significantly. Having
Well,
curly hair.
we had the opposite experience then. I actually got more introverted and weirded out after that, and it was just like this mop of curls on the top of my head, and I'd
Mm.
always had straight hair. And then by the time the summer rolled around, I went and detasseled corn every day in the sun. So those chemicals made my hair bleach bright
Oh
orange.
my, yeah,
And then
yeah.
I grew a mullet, so I was quite the look.
That's the
It's
good look.
it
Yeah.
was that's kind of why I turned to metal. I don't know.
So 14. What are your most unpopular food options? Like you like it, but everyone else is like, what is that?
Oh, well, that's a good question, but I'm the kind of person that can eat the same thing for like 6 months straight. I don't have a problem as long as I'm enjoying it. Um, I do that with my breakfast cereal, and as a kid, I love Kraft macaroni and cheese. Some people hate that. I don't know why. That's my favorite food of all time. Kind of a comfort food. Um, but I don't know. Um, I think it's easier to think of foods I don't like than it is to think about foods I like that other people don't like. Um, my wife doesn't like rye bread, so I always have
Okay.
to get my own rye bread. That's one thing. I don't know. I guess I got quirky tastes. Nothing too crazy though. I'm not really big on watermelon.
Okay.
I never dug it as much. I don't know why.
There's like a good pumpernickel every now and then.
I like
But-
pumpernickel, all right? Yeah.
Right. Number 5. Do you think aliens exist? And if so, what do you think they look like?
Well, they probably look like the aliens that we think they look like. Got an alien back here.
Okay.
That's a bank, and then there's the other alien up there from that's a Devil to Pay album cover painting that had commissioned. Um, but I was really into UFOs and aliens in high school and college, and I had a buddy that went out to Area 51 before the government
Wow.
seized the land around it. So you still used to be able to go to Tikaboo Peak and actually see the base from I don't know how many miles away. That the government got tired of people driving out there and climbing the mountain, so they ended up buying all that land and pushing the boundary off so no one could get up that high. But he said when they went, it took them half the day to climb up to the peak, and by the time they got to the top, there was the Whack and Hut security was down there with binoculars watching them come back down. But they didn't cross any border at the time, and there was a guy that lived in a trailer on the edge of the base, and he sold the Area 51 viewer's guide, and my buddy got a copy of that for me, and it's just something he did at Kinko's where he bound his own binding and had all the information on there. And that guy lived there and was basically making a living off of the tourism part of it, but he never saw anything that seemed extraterrestrial. He was more about convincing people that they should go to Vegas and eat the buffets because they were worth a lot more money back then.
Okay. Yeah.
But I thought when I was younger that I might have been abducted, and I think I grew out of that thinking though. When I was 9 years old, I had a crazy nightmare that my family was being abducted, and I woke up out of the dream in a panic and had a sleep paralysis moment. So
Wow.
I never knew what it was until later. But as a kid, I wake up and it's pitch black in my room, and I can't breathe, and I can't move, and I can't scream. And there's an alien that walked through my room, and there were no lights were on, but he was lit up like there were lights on him. And as he came closer to the bed, and I tried to scream, I couldn't breathe. And he just walked through the wall, and then it all stopped. I started breathing, and then I ran into my parents' room and tried to wake them up, and they were like, "Go back to bed." And I never really knew what it was or what triggered it, but I did find out other people have sleep paralysis where they think there's a demon hovering over their bed. When they wake up, they can't breathe or move. And that allegedly, according to scientists, is because when you sleep, your body is in that paralysis mode so that you don't act out from your dreams. And some people sleepwalk, so they don't actually control the motor function. But everyone else, if you have a traumatic dream and you wake from it, you're actually still partially dreaming, and that was part of the explanation that I had. I don't think that I was abducted, but I had other weird alien dreams as a kid, but nothing, no proof of anything. But I always believed the aliens were out there, but I bought as many books as I could and read as much as I could, and eventually I moved on. Like, so I still have my collection of stuff, and I used to record anything that was on TV with the old VCR. Do you remember when Larry King went out to Area 51 and set up a studio out there and interviewed?
My father used to put on In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy.
Oh,
Remember
nice.
that show?
Yeah. But I used to love all that stuff and eat it up. And now I see in the actual news, they're like ex-military man says it's all true, and I'm like, well, I was with you back in the 90s, brother. But
I just wanted Mulder to find the truth that was out there. Every week I waited for him to find the truth. He never did.
That would have made the show a lot better for sure. Even though it was a great show.
My only nightmare panic attacks is waking up and going, is it trash day? Did I put the trash out? Like that's been my entire life, basically. Yeah. Oh God, it's only Wednesday. All right, I'm back to sleep.
Do you have those dreams where you wake up and you think you're gonna miss the school bus? Like I lived in the country, so
or late for an exam. I still have that.
Yeah.
I don't think that ever goes away. And I don't think I was ever late for an exam, but I still have dreams that I was going to be.
That's a pretty unique phenomenon. Like those, I have a lot of dreams now. Like I'm showing up for the class and I'm not prepared. And I have the same exact dream for the band where we're playing a giant show, like opening for Kiss. I had that dream once. We're opening for Kiss, and I'm too drunk. I can't even play. The band's mad at me.
Well, you could play the Peter Criss stuff then.
This is true. I hadn't thought about that. But I have that. It's a recurring dream that I'm trying to play and I'm blacked out drunk. And I never actually get to the music part in the dream. It's just the anxiety before or after. Like I had a terrible show, but I don't remember it. Isn't that weird? I don't know what anxiety dreams those come from. Normally comes when I'm not playing shows, so I don't really understand it. But
Yeah, I don't get the college dreams either because now I dream that I would be all upset because I missed the exam. But my 20-year-old self would have been like, fuck all y'all. I don't care. I'm going back and getting drunk. Like I wouldn't have actually cared if it had actually happened.
Right.
But my adult self now is very upset about it. So
right.
The real nightmare back then would be, oh my God, we're out of beer. Like that was the real nightmare.
If you have ever waited tables, and I did for a long time, all of us have reported, we call them weed dreams. And it has nothing to do with marijuana. When you're really busy and everything's kind of really hectic and when you're waiting tables, we call that you're in the weeds. And you have these dreams that like you're waiting tables and everything's going wrong and you can't get anything out and people are yelling. I had those for years.
I think any really intense job that makes you dream about it that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel bad for people that go through, the fog of war and all that kind of stuff. Cause I imagine they're having crazy dreams like that the whole life,
Yeah, it never goes away. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll catch at the Maryland Doom Festival. Last year was a little warm, so maybe it'll be a little cooler.
A little warm. It was like 110 degrees last year. It was insanely hot. It was crazy. We were going into stores just for the air conditioning. And I remember we went into like a knife shop and I was like, act like we know about knives.
Because we'd get there early.
So we could cool off.
No, we'd get there early to get something to eat. And then we had to mill around before the show started.
It was the hottest. Yeah. It's not normally that hot here. And it was super humid. It was really bad last year. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't remember it being that hot last year. I don't think, last year I didn't go. Apostle played the year before that.
Yeah, maybe the year before. And the thing is, like in the venue, they didn't really have air on. I think they just kind of like blacked out all the windows, Right. So it was better than being outside, but it wasn't like comfortable. And I remember they cut the mic on Sirathon Golf. I was like, oh.
Was that because they got to that point in the night where they had to be quiet or whatever?
I guess. I don't know whether like the timing was off, but they were not done. And I was loving it. And they just were like, well, have a good night.
Yeah, that would have been a bummer.
That was a shame.
Yeah.
And we had sat through so many bands to get to them, but anyway. So yeah, but we always have a good time there. Yeah.
Falling on deaf ears.
Okay, Deaf Ears 1 is the new EP from Hog, True Romance. Detroit, Muscle Shoals, Stoke-on-Trent, Christchurch, New Zealand. Hey, I thought the same thing when I first spun this 4-song, 8-minute barn burner and second release from the punk rock 6-piece Hog. Following 2022's similarly brief 7-inch, Ready for the End, the irony of the title, True Romance, isn't lost on me since this was all love at first listen for yours truly. We're talking straight up gutter snipe power chords, razor sharp guitar leads, cowbells popping in and out, and sleazy vocal wolves reeking of Marlboro damage.
Think Stooges. Think Heartbreakers. Think Ironhead. Guitarists Luke Penrose and Sam Hope show a remarkable knack for chord economy and the wild dueling aggro leads, while keyboardist Natilla Ann adds oh-so-subtle accents to make the choruses just that bit more hummable.
I wonder if they call her Natilla the Hun.
Maybe. Possibly.
Yeah.
Dan Richardson's vocals are like a rusty switchblade, yowling and howling away like he's flat on his back in the parking lot of the Methadone Clinic. Not exactly what I expected from a part of the world most people associate more with llamas than lowlives. Not very produced at all by a Christchurch polymath engineer, Brian Fury, at a place called the Dog Shit Factory, and pressed in a tiny batch, 200, on recycled vinyl. This is exactly the sort of obscure garage punk nugget everyone needs in their collection.
The band sounds even more lethal this time around, kicking off the title track with a low-slung riff that's guaranteed to get you looking up from your bowl of cornflakes. Cowbell effectively engaged by stickman Johnny Fast. Penrose and Hope wheedling hither and thither while Richardson args and blargs all over everything and everybody. Listen to the sample. This is part of True Romance.
Looking for mystery? From here, we jump right into the third segment of a non-existent trilogy, Confessions, Part 3.
I'm so confused.
A track that sports a marvelously dichotomy from the low barking riffing and pop smarts of the clean fill floating over it in the mix. Kudos to the Dog Shit Factory dude for dialing up that one.
Thank God for the Dog Shit Factory. Line Hall takes off on a hard bonking. Can you say hard bonking? Is that a phrase? Hard bonking. Hard bonking keys and a mangled lead before settling into a sturdy garage punk riff, all but suffocated by Richardson's vocal vomiting. And just when things seem on the verge of total collapse, the band steps sideways into a tight rhythm break with chiming guitars and whirring bass over a deft groove. They save the best for last, though, because the filthy wah-soaked riff that kicks off closer, Can't Fight the Parasite, proves to be the most gloriously offensive point of the entire disc. Listen to some of this. This is Can't Fight the Parasite. You know, I can rest easy. My copy's already on order. It's on their Bandcamp page for I think it was 300 Australian bucks with shipping, which comes out to be like $19 United States. And you know, I'm not here for my math skills, okay? The point is, get over to Hog's Bandcamp page, check out True Romance, or you have no right to call yourself a dirtbag, asshole. Okay, Deaf Ears too.
This is Coilguns with Odd Love. A coil gun is a device that uses electromagnets to accelerate projectiles at high speeds. It gets the job done, just in a different way, without using gunpowder. In a similar fashion, the Swiss four-piece gets things done exploding sonically in a non-typical way, with odd time signatures, down-tuned instruments, ambient noise, a variety of vocal styles, and lots of angst. For this fourth full length, they seem to have upped their efforts, taking the time to really craft each song's atmosphere. When the album starts off with the track entitled, We Missed the Parade, you can be fairly sure that this is not going to be a bevy of sunshine and lollipops. These 10 tracks and one intro are purges of disillusion, disappointment, despair, and many other words that start with the prefix dis. Track length also varies, most in the 3 to 4 minute range, but there are two in the more epic 6 to 7 minute length.
We Missed the Parade has a post-rock anthem feel. The vocals of Louis Jucker, half song, half indignant screams over Jonathan Nito's jangly reverby guitar, and the frantic, furious stick falls of Luke Hess. Generic Skincare explores a similar vein, but starts off with a marvelous push-pull between airy, arpeggiated guitar and a mathy, pounded rhythm from Hess. Jucker screams the pain off your toenails as he bemoans, wrinkles, edges of our souls in plain sight. See them stirring time across our faded face, our melting fate and glooming age. A fate which neither Botox or Dorian Gray can escape, sins written as wrinkles. The track ends with a strong crescendo, all falling away but drums and vocals seemingly trying to vie each other out in hostility. Here's a little bit of what we mean. This is Generic Skincare.
Wind to Wash the Pain is a bit of a departure, with slower, bleeding guitar stabs echoing like they were being played in an empty bowl. The vocals are plaintive without the other track's anger. Bells jangle like Jacob Marley's chains. Drums are completely absent. The undercurrent instead is a deep trudge to the gallows synth, while the guitar notes whine over the top. The sound of seagulls squawking at track's end gives it that empty beach feel. In contrast, Placeholders demonstrates Yucker's vocal range from out-of-tune warbles to unhinged shrieks. The riffs of Nido are quick and tight over rapid solid drum taps. The bass of Kevin Gayland, a deep and ominous tone. The style is swapped out for a quick layered whistle. It kind of is over rat-a-tat drums that make me think of the ancient drum and fife marching out onto the battlefield. Yucker's wah-ah-ohs spiral out of control as the track plays out. A falcon who can no longer hear the falconer. This is Placeholders.
I think in picking a favorite track, it's a toss-up between Bandwagoning, that begins with a rolling and thwacking drum solo by Hess. The riffing of Nino is rapid-fire oscillation, achieving a buzz like a live wire. Jucker's vocals are rapid word staccato delivery. Turnovers, watertight, we lack an alibi, calendar standardized, excuse all but don't justify. Check out when the guitar howls while Gallon's bass rumbles all over a synthesizer yell. Hess is a many-tempoed, 100-armed hecatonaires, propelling the kit through doomy plods to crazy speed pops. You can hear someone say, fuck yeah, at the recording's end, and I have to say I was thinking the same thing. Caravel also kicks off with some show-off drumming, this time in a jazz-type pattern with hi-hats adding their smash. A swirling synth tone blends with guitar building the tension. Jucker's vocals break and crack at the edges, as everything, including his singing, has a down-tuned feel. Later, some random piano smacks and slaps up and down the keys, sounding like a nipped-up cat is walking on them. The piano cacophony is later reprised, and after a few seconds of silence at the end of the track, it sounds like a drunk player passed out on the faceplant on the keys.
Odd Love refers to their relationship with music and the cathartic way it gives them an outlet to process all the light and dark things that go on in their lives. For this album, the band kept the reins of artistic production, recording in jam band fashion, but this time traveling to Norway to the renowned Ocean Studio, importing American producer Scott Evans and recruiting Grammy-nominated producers Tom Dagley and Robin Schmidt to add extra polish to the mixing and mastering. The combination here of stellar production and Coilguns' unique blend of post-hardcore, punk, noise rock, and even a little grunge works in creating an immersive, cathartic experience. Come to the odd side, do things differently, and delight in all the quirks. You'll never go back to ordinary. This is Bandwagoning.
Okay, Deaf Ears 3.
This is Vylet Pony, Monarch of Monsters. For our final Deaf Ears feature this week, we delve into the world of the truly strange and brilliant. Vylet Pony is one Zelda Trixie Lulamoon, a 26-year-old musician currently based in the Portland area. She goes by Susie, Pacifica, Canny, and Antonymph. Over the course of the last 10 years, she has released no less than 19 full-length records, blending genres like alternative metal, post-rock, art pop, and dubstep, among others. Oh, and all of her records are concept albums written in the universe of My Little Pony. Friendship is magic.
Yeah, I get it, but you have to hear this stuff. She does not need our approval, people. She's over 75,000 YouTube followers, 117,000 followers on Spotify. There's even an extensive Vylet Pony wiki listing everything from album themes to astrological signs to preferred pronouns. This latest album, Monarch of Monsters, consists of 12 songs clocking in at a mammoth hour and 23 minutes, with song lengths all over the place and sprawling zigzags from rave-ready dance grooves to jazzy horn arrangements to glitchy electronics to blues guitar explorations and everything in between. And yes, she plays every instrument. The story behind the album, which deals primarily with a Pegasus that goes on a killing spree and is eventually executed. Sorry, spoiler alert, right? It's described in detail on her Bandcamp page, along with some very candid and cathartic explanations from Lulamoon, linking the story characters to her own experiences.
The industrial stuff offers a vibe similar to Poppy in cuts like The Stormy, Play Dead, and the skronky throb of Princess Cuckoo. Miss Lulamoon proving to be no shrinking violet from a vocal standpoint, shrieking and caterwauling over the din of noise at the track's crescendo. The Heretic, Woe Is Me, is a great place for the uninitiated to start, as it is a soaring future pop masterpiece with simple guitar lines bolstering her intoxicatingly breathy coos that move into a marvelously demented chorus, and it absolutely drips with hooks. As the Heretic, as the Parasite, strip me down, down, down to my sins. This is not children's music by a long stretch, despite the overarching theme. Let's play a sample from The Heretic, Woe Is Me.
Should mention at this point that there are not one but two 10-plus minute songs on the album, and both are spectacular. First, the Wallflower Equation, which moves through guitar-charged alt-rock and synth bubbles into a crazed out-jazz rhythm that sports an unbelievable bass line, pushing and pulling against a bombastic pop chorus with about 73 layers of synths stacked on top of each other. The overall effect is very reminiscent of 70s progressive rock or something like Radiohead's Kid A record. The track ends with a nimble blues acoustic workout complete with harmonica accompaniment. Listen to some of this. This is the Wallflower Equation.
Burn the wallflower. Loneliness empowers.
Sludge is over 22 minutes long, and as you can expect, it's an epic of Swans-adjacent proportions. Tribal yet danceable percussion, a stout bass line, noisy guitar scratch, building, as Lulamoon weaves vocal drama smartly and dramatically. The song sort of restarts itself a couple of times, pulling us through cosmic wormholes of breathy dissident storms, guitar-heavy rock grooves, and even some wild saxophone solos. But despite the sonic experimentation, the track never sounds out of control or ceases building tension forward.
It's not really a record as it is an investment. I've been absorbing it for weeks, and I'm still finding little quirks and offbeat hooks buried in the mix. Fans of forward-thinking pop or progressive rock looking for something a little more challenging should pony up the $10 to hear this record. Sorry. Okay, let's close it out with a little bit of the Sludge song. Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast, just the place for Joseph Stalin jokes.
And who knew Joseph Stalin had something in common with Lord? We didn't even realize that.
How do you like
They
that?
both had accents. This has been the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast. Special thanks to Steve from the Gates of Slumber for appearing on the show. Snaggletooth theme courtesy of Jens Kemgren of the Firebombs. Deaf Ears theme by Tim Green of the Fucking Champs. Season 4 artwork courtesy of KC Angel. You can find him on Instagram at KC Angel Art. While you're busy checking out the Gates of Slumber, also make sure to get over there and check out Coilguns, Hull, and Vylet Pony. All content 2024. The Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.
God bless Leo Gerstenzong, inventor of the Q-tip.